And hello and welcome to Bath Spa Academic Centre Ras Al Khaimah. Today we're going to be discussing emerging technologies, and I'm joined by my colleague Usman and some guests. Please come and sit down. Welcome. Please make yourself comfortable. Hi. So thank you very much for joining us, Usman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bidi. So I will introduce our panel first. So on my far left we have Jake, and then we have Jeshua. On my right side we have Aaron, and on my far right we have Lemuel. So the topic of the discussion is the growth of e-learning and other forms of non-traditional education will eventually make the traditional university irrelevant.
Wow, controversial.
So the forum is all yours now.
Okay, well, traditional learning is very present here right now, but during the pandemic, the only way for students to actually learn was through online learning, and it proved a lot of things that there are more ways of learning than just being in a classroom as well. So, what do you think, Jake?
For me, honestly, I prefer e-learning. I'm more on the side of e-learning as Lemuel mentioned, during the pandemic, we had to use our technology for us to study. And the good thing I like about e-learning is we actually had this thing, what we call flexibility. Basically, flexibility for me when it comes to e-learning. For us students, in case of like there's an emergency or we're sick, what we had in Bath Spa, there was recorded sessions for our modules, and the good thing about that was if there was any point where a student would be absent, the student can just watch that module, the recorded module, and it was very useful as the student did not skip any classes. Basically, did not skip any classes, and that's pretty much all I can say for now.
I kind of agree with Jake here because before I've experienced e-learning as well when I was in high school, where pretty much you can learn it by your own pace. Not like in traditional learning, we have classes. If you miss the class, then you have to like catch up. Not like in e-learning, you can take your time, and it's really good.
Yeah, but in e-learning, sometimes there are students where they don't usually listen to the teachers. So even though when they try to catch up with the recorded lessons, that's why for me personally, I still prefer the traditional learning, because the teacher can interact personally with the student and can interact if the student is having a hard time with his studies or anything while with his assignments or with his lessons. So
See, we're not allowed to show favoritism, but you're my friend, he's my friend. No.
So yeah, for me personally, I prefer traditional learning because sometimes I get easily distracted. So when I'm in my computer, my phone, I easily get distracted with notifications, messages, and so on. So that's why for other students, they prefer traditional learning, because when they're studying in traditional learning, they are focused in the teacher only, and all technologies are hands down. But of course, for our course right now, we need computers and for coding for that. So I still prefer traditional, because you can ask the teacher personally in front of them. If you need help, you can just call the teacher over and ask for any codes for help, like that. That's for me.
I'm wondering actually whether we see life as black and white. You can only have online, fully online or fully in class.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether there's a kind of compromise, a blend where it's the best of both worlds almost. I wonder if what do you think?
Well, there has been some classrooms and classes that they're actually doing a mix of both. Like they're using an online website to actually teach their lectures, and it can be more of an interactive way, because since, let's face it, everybody has laptops and phones, And if the teachers can properly use those while teaching their subjects, it will be really effective for the teachers because it gives them a more personal level of teaching.
Yes.
Because having the students get rid of their phones and just focusing on them, it's kind of really hard with today's age, you know.
I think it's just not about the teacher and student interaction. So when we talk about a classroom, we have an environment where we learn from our peers, like our class fellows. So that is very important part that is missing when you are taking online classes or e-learning platforms. So I think peer learning or learning from your classmates, that is very important aspect of your education. So I think with these online or e-learning platforms, we miss this opportunity. So that is very important. For me, that is very important.
A lot of times happened in e-learning as well before was there was a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to online classes. In my experience when I was in first year, our session includes like 70 people or 65 in this one online session, and I had some troubles because for me I had no coding background or anything. I actually didn't know anything about it, and there was some times where I wanted to ask the teacher but I couldn't because there's actually a lot of students, not like in traditional learning. The teachers
There's a
just
barrier,
in front of
you saw a barrier.
Yeah.
Yes, that's interesting.
And not everyone have the courage to do so,
Yes, yes.
right? So I prefer traditional learning, and like you said about the hybrid one, I think that would be a good idea as well because not everyone can actually go to school. Like in our cases, it's actually so far from where we live and stuff.
It's interesting because the pandemic really affected all of us, both educators and students, but it affected us slightly differently. So from our side, we detected, there's a big difference between attendance and attention, right?
Yeah.
So, because I knew there was students that would log in and then the phone went under the pillow again. It was kind of obvious,
Yeah.
So, but the other thing was it was kind of interesting because we weren't traveling. We weren't spending a lot of money on fuel. We weren't traveling between our home and university, so that we could hear the birds again. We could have proper lunches. The only trouble is, I guess, our work life and our home life kind of merged. I don't know if that felt like that as a student. You didn't differentiate. It was quite difficult in the early days when students were using Discord, for example, for gaming, and then using Discord as well for education.
Yeah.
And you were getting all sorts of inappropriate kind of comms on Discord, because they were still in gaming mode, So yeah, it's different.
The other aspect of this one is extracurricular activities. So in traditional university, you have a lot of functions, you have sports activities, and you have different events where you can express your talent. So I think with e-learning, we miss this opportunity as well, that we cannot present ourselves.
Yes, social interaction.
Social interaction.
Absolutely.
And we can, if we talk about our university, we have different communities. So this gives us opportunity to learn from these different communities. So we have different events where we can express ourselves and we can also learn from others. That is very vital part of your growth, and I think that part is missing in e-learning.
Yes, that's true. It's a holistic kind of,
Yeah.
looking after the student holistically. So it's not just about the topic that they're learning. It's the whole kind of interaction. Because
And-
this is a formative time, isn't it?
With my experience, I have seen that with online classes, I cannot see that either my student is working on that task or not. But in class, I can see that student is actually performing that task. So it gives you an opportunity to see that student is actually having some hands-on experience or not. So that is also very important in traditional university education.
It's interesting as well because even in a non-academic sense, I think the pandemic was an accelerant. I think we were always going to do kind of homeworking, or hybrid working, or remote working. But it was almost like an accelerant. It kind of forced the issue. So maybe we are having to think about education in a different way because it's forced us to think differently. And you guys have got an experience that previous generations didn't have.
But one thing that is I very like about this e-learning, that it gives opportunity to those students who are not having enough money to join any traditional university. So for example, if a guy is sitting in rural areas and he wants to learn something, he just needs one internet connection and YouTube is full of the content. So he can just tune into YouTube and just learn something that he wants to learn. That is very important for marginalized areas where there is no such facility, or the family is not having enough money to send their kids to proper school. So I think this gives a good opportunity for those students as well.
It does, although your previous point was that maybe miss out in the kind of the other aspects.
Yeah.
But you just wonder whether you could take the other aspects to them.
Yeah.
You almost have a bus of students that visits villages once a month, and you get that social interaction as well. Something. We're full of bright ideas, so there's no shortage of ideas.
Actually, I have a funny story about that. Before my first year, when it was online classes, I was staying in the US while I can't get back here in the UAE. So that time I was learning while I was on the road. Because that time we were traveling and I was studying while doing the practices that the teachers are telling me to do. And I really appreciate the teachers' focus on the students, where there are students where they turn off their cameras and doing other stuff. So the teacher told us to turn on the cameras so they can see us and what we were doing. So we really were focusing on what the teacher was doing and teaching.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one of the good parts about online learning, because anywhere you are, you can actually find the time to learn. And anyone, it doesn't have a pre-requirement to learn something. You can just Google it online, and then if you want it, then you can.
You made that point earlier, and it's interesting because in a classroom setting you can't press pause, and then play again.
That's the good thing with e-learning. There's flexibility between e-learning compared to traditional learning, where the students actually have to be in class and there's no stopping the teacher from teaching. But from e-learning, as I said earlier, you can do it anywhere. The students can feel free to do it at home, libraries, cafes, wherever they are. It's flexible for the students to study anywhere.
It's good. Well, it's very thought-provoking stuff, and it's good to think about these things.
Interesting ideas.
Good. I like this idea of blended. The blended environment is a really good idea. That's brilliant. Well, I want to say thank you very much for coming and discussing that. It was fascinating. I hate stopping these things because it's it takes a wee bit of time to flow, and then once it's flowing, you don't want to stop. But thanks very much to Usman for facilitating. Thank you very much for participating, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that and found it as interesting as I did. And until next time, this is your host Billy signing off from Bath Spa Academic Centre, Ras Al Khaimah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.